Hello, welcome to another Tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence. I'm Francis McCarthy, and the painting I am bringing you today is called Evening is Coming. It's an 8x8, and I completed this painting back in I want to say late October. I'm quite fond of this painting. I kind of got the idea from a reference photograph I took back when my wife and I had a little vacation, probably about 5-6 months ago, and we took a little trip around parts of New Zealand here. And one of the things I like about some of the landscape up here in Northland, New Zealand, is there's a lot of places where you have rocky outcrops with trees growing out of them and things, and the rocks are always very interesting looking to me. They're like old volcanic sort of outcrops, and this scene, it caught my eye. I think I've got a couple different versions of it. This one's a square though, and one of the interesting things is I don't normally like to paint this type of tree, but in this particular case I think it turned out real well. Also, there's a couple other things about this painting that are a little different. One is it's basically kind of a blue sky. So I do those once in a while. It's pretty rare, but even here you can see it's kind of twilightish, and one of the things that distinguishes this picture is the sort of bright sky contrasted against the trees and rock and the side of the hill that is all fairly dark. Mostly, in fact, the side of the hill itself is quite dark. And I had a good feeling about this from when I was standing there with my camera, to be honest. But my processing of the reference went very well, and I had a good feeling about it. The board was textured nicely. I had a good palette in mind, and it came together quite quickly. I'd say this session you're seeing now is sped up maybe, 14 times or something like that. Anyway, today is December 28th. 2018. We're going to be saying goodbye to 2018 in a little while, and it's been a good year for me painting wise. I'd have to say one of the things that distinguishes this year from previous years is that I've seriously got back into making music again. So actually starting almost a year ago, it was January or so last year that I decided to dust off all the old I'm in the box as far as music goes. I do everything inside the computer except sing, and I don't do much of that lately. This whole year has been about doing instrumentals and collaborating with people, but seeing as this is a painting channel, we'll keep it on the painting. As far as things that have gone on with the painting, like I mentioned in my last video, evolution of the textured board, the continuation of doing master studies. I started doing larger master studies. I've got quite a few of those in the studio right now with the first pass on them. I was kind of getting one a day done for a little while there, and it's good when you can get on a roll like that. And who knows, this might be your first M. Francis McCarthy video, so this is the point where I interject. If you're here because you want to learn how to paint, you want to get better at painting, I will say paint all the time, paint every day, paint, and you'll get better. And there's no other way to get better. There isn't. Sitting there watching videos isn't going to make you better. You can get insights, and the best thing to do is if you get an insight or an idea from some other artist, maybe write it down, but the best thing to do is try and put it into practice in your own work immediately and make it your own, because ultimately this is one of the things that really kind of distinguishes painting from a lot of other forms of art is that you do it alone, and other people can have things to say about it. They can comment on it. You get situations where two painters will work together, like maybe the brothers Hildebrandt or something like that. But for the most part, you're working on your own, and you're doing your own thing, and it's really about creating your own world visually, the way you see things. And it's not easy to do. It's quite a challenge to do well. Anyone can actually do a painting, and anyone can definitely do a bad painting. And I encourage people to do lots of bad paintings, because if you do enough bad paintings, after a while you'll end up doing some that are pretty good, and then you get to a point where most of them are good, and some of them are really, really good, and that's where you want to be. And I have to say that's where I think I've ended up after it's taken nearly 10 years to get there. And most of the time I'm not failing. I do have some that are much stronger than others, but pardon me, a little bit of a frog in my throat there. But the great thing about the failing, the doing the bad paintings, is that you probably won't make, once you have identified what makes it bad, that makes you pretty much free not to do that again. And after you work your way through all the possible potential misfires and mistakes that you can make, you're kind of left in a space where you're just perfecting your vision, perfecting your technique, and things that add up to making the painting better. Like I'm been talking a lot about texture. Well, texture, initially is not something people even concern themselves with. They just go get a cheap canvas from the art supply store, and they're not even thinking about texture or how it's affecting the perception of their work. They're much more concerned with just trying to get the image down and have it look all right. And then well, we could go through and list all the things that amateurs do that we all see, the bright garish colors that aren't true to nature. And actually I had someone comment on one of my palette blogs. He was talking about how he was very interested to hear about artists and the colors they work with and things. He was mentioning he doesn't like black, but I've mentioned many times in this channel the best use for black is to knock colors, knock that saturation out. It's a color killer, and for that reason alone it would be indispensable in my palette. But I use black for everything now. I mean, if I want a shadow color, it's going to be black. But for years I was doing like this chromatic thing where I was mixing, that's a very nice dark color, phthalo green with alizarin crimson. It makes a really nice nearly black color. It's a great color because it's complementary. It's a bit of a purplish tone, but it even has warm and cool undertones. It definitely leans more towards cool, but it's very flexible, and for that reason it's a great color for doing darks. Not better than black though, not for me. And that took me, so we say I'm 10 years in now. That wasn't about until maybe 3 or 4 years ago I started using black as my primary dark color. And that was when I came to the realization that all of my favorite artists were doing that. They were using just plain black. And for me to try and get those sort of results while using a chromatic black, I might be close, but that distance between really getting it and not can be a chasm, especially the better you get. So the better you get, the more incremental your progress will be, and the harder it gets to make extreme progress. But I'm pretty content with just not doing a lot of bad paintings, I have to say. Most of the time these days, when a lot of it just starts with the subject, the motif that you're deciding to paint, the photos you're using, and there's all kinds of times my wife and I might be driving around in the landscape, and she'll go, "Oh, what about that scene, honey?" I go, "Nope, bad painting. Won't make a good painting." And why is that? Well, how do I know that? Because I tried. I tried and I failed. I already know it's not going to work, so I don't even bother. And like I say, I've repeated myself endlessly on this channel, but I'm assuming a lot of you are new, or that maybe you just, don't mind hearing me again. But I will say that composition is very, very, very hard to teach. There are some books on it out there. A really great one is by, oh yeah, I'm looking at it. It's by Payne. Forgetting his first name, but it's called Composition of Outdoor Painting. It's a great book, but I've had that book for 8 years, and did a ton of paintings of bad compositions, even owning the book. So it's better than a poke in the eye, but ultimately you just need to work your way through things. Anyway, I see we're getting close to the end. Have a happy new year, and I hope you have a very prosperous and creative 2019. I'm hoping to as well. And thank you for joining me on this channel. I'll be back real soon with another video. And so, meanwhile, please take good care and stay out of trouble.
Then what was it?